Hidden away in a small Iowa farming community sits a hidden piece of history. David Peterson has made it his mission to preserve his hometown's history. The history of Boxholm, Iowa, that is. For about 30 years, David has renovated an old bank building and meticulously created wonderful displays of items he has gathered. Boxholm is in Boone County along Highway 169 and has a population of just under 200 people. Please join myself, Tom, and my cameraman Kevin as we tour the Boxholm Museum. Hello everyone, Tom with History Delights here. We're in Boxholm, Iowa, and I'm talking to Dave here, who has started a one-man museum, and if I've read correctly here in Boxholm, you've been working on this history and museum for about 20 years. Would that be right?
More like 30.
More like 30 now. Oh my goodness.
I got this building in 91.
In 1991, okay. And what kind of building was this?
Well, it used to be a bank, and they abandoned it and moved down to the new building across the highway down there.
Right, right.
And they offered this one for sale and no takers, and then a few years later the roof blew off of it and they just let it sit here and go to pot. And I raised my hand and said, well, I'll take it, because they were going to tear it down.
Right.
And then I completely gutted the building out, and everything you see in here is brand new except for this marble floor. I did it all myself.
This is about 30 years in the making, and from what I understand, a lot of this stuff you collected on your own, but some of it has been donated, but a lot of it you collected on your own, is that correct?
Yes, when people saw what I was doing here, they'd come forward and give me things to put in here. And I made sure that they knew that it was a private museum and that everything in here belongs to me.
Right. So it's a private museum, but like me, I called you earlier this morning and said, gee, I'd sure like to see your museum, and you were very gracious to say, I'll be down there to open it up. So it is open to private tours by appointment.
Yeah.
Okay.
I get class reunions or family reunions, and sometimes I'll have 30, 40 people in here.
Oh, that's great. That is great. Well, thank you so much. I think we are going to take a look around the museum, and on our way out, maybe we'll talk to you again and have a few closing thoughts. Thanks, David. Okay. Okay, David has a wonderful story. I'm sure a pretty exciting story. A little bit of history about this bank and this bank vault here. What can you tell us, David?
Well, the owners of this bank said that nobody will ever break in here, nobody will ever get through this vault door. And there was no burglar alarm system in here, nothing. But in 1969, 2 or more burglars broke through that window, came in here. They used a magnesium burning bar, and they cut a hole right here, which I'm going to show you in a second. You can see where they cut, and they reached up here and they cut through this buzz bar, and then they threw the lever, opened the door. They didn't even have to walk through the hole they cut. Then the owners said, well, even if somebody would get in here, they'd never get any money because it's put in this cannonball cash safe every night. But they were wrong again. This has a triple fail-safe time lock. You would set all 3 of those for, say, 8 a.m. It weighs 2,500 pounds, solid cast iron. You can't cut it with a torch. This screws itself into the main body. You spin the dial. You can't open it even if you know the combination, because the time locks have to trip out. All still works now because I've had it restored. Then they used their magnesium burning bar, and they cut a hole back here. One of the robbers stood with a bucket of water and poured in there as they were cutting to keep the money inside from burning up. And they just reached in there and they got $10,000 in cash.
Right. Were they ever caught?
And they were never caught, and there were no other bank robberies in Iowa around that time period. Usually there's a string of them. They go from town to town.
Sure.
And that's 1969, 40-some years ago. No, 50-some years ago.
Some years ago now, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is pretty amazing, right?
The article about the robbery is there.
I see.
And then, excuse me.
Sure.
After they, don't jump now, but after the robbery, they put in a burglar system. They called the Diebold Safe and Lock people up to look at the door, and they said, well, it's going to cost $10,000 to fix it, and it's going to take 6 weeks. And the bank people said, no, that's not acceptable. So they took it right down the street to our welder down here, and he says, I'll have it ready for you tomorrow. And him and his son worked on through the night, and they re-welded it, fixed it all up. And in the meantime, they had the town cop up here with his gun, standing guard. This whole side here was all full of safety deposit boxes. Who knows what untold treasures would have been in them.
Sure.
They never touched them. All they wanted was the cash.
Wow.
And in 1969, $10,000 was 2 or 3 years' wages for a working man.
Absolutely.
All these books in here are local Iowa history books or local Boone County books, or there's a few Webster County stuff in here.
That's a very interesting story.
And they made this false door to cover up the hand.
Now there's a organization, Modern Woodmen of America, their lodge sword, chartered in 1895 and dissolved in 1964. Lots of Boxholm memorabilia here. We got some horsehair driving gloves from the 1920s. Baseball uniforms. A whole array of pictures. Look at the band uniforms. Pretty fancy.
Well, see, back in the 50s, Boxholm was jumping. We had band concerts twice a week
Sure.
during the summer months.
Yeah.
And ice cream socials, and we had the Boxholm Swedes men's fast pitch softball teams played 2 games every week, all summer long.
Yeah.
There was just something to do all the time,
There was always something.
and now there's nothing.
Now there's nothing. Yeah.
I think we had 30-some businesses at one time. And these are the 2 books that I have written on Boxholm's history, this one in '86 and this one in '05. Just to record the town's history.
You know, history gets lost if we don't record it, isn't it? And we were kind of talking about earlier, there seems to be 2 types of people. Those that really love history and those that could care less about it, right?
Yes.
So books like this is for those who really care for history and...
I had 700 copies of this printed back then,
Yeah.
and it cost me $30.50 each. I sold them for $31.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, I'll never sell all these if I live to be 100, and in 7 months they were gone.
Yep, that's terrific.
These I still have a few left
Yeah.
to sell.
But you know, 100 years from now, someone will discover one of these books and they say, wow, I didn't know that about great-great-grandpa, right?
Boxholm was famous for its softball, men's fast pitch softball teams plural. We had state runner-up in 1957. I even tried my hand at folk art carving last summer one day when I didn't have anything to do.
Man.
That's all I could come up with.
That's very nice.
Everything in this building, well, I take that back, 95% of everything in this building has something to do with Boxholm.
Mm-hmm.
So if people are looking for rare and valuable antiques, there aren't any. It's all Boxholm's junk.
That's right. That's right.
These
Now we've entered the military room, and
these are the actual uniforms worn by the Boxholm people so named. There's no flea market junk in there. It's all original. I built all these mannequins myself. That's me right back there.
so a Vietnam veteran.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service.
And that's my
Very
dad
nice.
right on the end over there. This is my dad's brother. I come from a long military family. Several
absolutely.
other of my brothers and sisters were in the service also. So
Yep. Yep.
I'm one of 10 children, and my dad was one of 13, and his dad was one of 11.
No. Yeah.
My great grandfather was the first permanent settler in this township, so I'm fourth generation Boxholm.
Wow. A 16 gauge. Yeah. My father had one of those. Single shot.
I'm also the township cemetery clerk, and I keep track of all the veterans that are buried in our 3 cemeteries we have around Boxholm here. So those names up there are all.
We got a lot of different Boxholm veterans photos up here. And of course, for Kevin and I, we study the Civil War a lot. So when we come across things like this picture here, John L. Good, last surviving Civil War veteran of Grant Township, born April 9th, 1845, and died June 8th, 1928, aged 83 years. And that photo was taken in 1902.
And he is my great-great-grandfather's brother.
Okay. Yep. Well, this is just a wonderful tribute.
And you don't see these great big cartridges anymore,
No,
huge big
sure
things.
don't.
Years ago, you could buy the empty shell casings for $5 at a flea market.
Yeah.
I was a machinist by trade
Mhm.
during my working years, and
Right.
I made all those projectiles on my lathe
Hmm.
and filled them full of sand,
Sure.
so they don't tip over.
Well, David gave us a good tour of the first floor, but we weren't done yet. There's 2 more floors to go. So here we see a barbed wire collection, and then we move on to just a wonderful display of Iowa motoring history with all kinds of license plates. There's the 50 state collection there. Look at that, Boone County number 1, 2, and 3 in 1971. There's a leather license plate. Very unique. I had not seen one of those. And there's a year by year collection of plates. And then we get into the common household pantry type items, little cook stoves, hand pump. Again, a lot of these items are right here from the Boxholm area. Just the way he has meticulously arranged this, put it by subject matter, room by room. Look at the ice box. Yeah. Of course, you got to have your spices. And the old irons. Look at how they changed over the years. Very interesting. And then we get into, well, not all from Boone County area, but it even has some of the like natural resources type uh, items displayed, some arrowheads. You just don't know what you're going to see in this museum, and we wish we had more time to spend there. Just great displays. And then we get into some of the church history there in Boxholm. He's got a room on that. Silver tea service. Yeah. Look at that parlor Bible, big and thick. And then Dave explained some of the history of the churches in the area. Of course, in these small communities, there were many churches. Just about all the families attended church on Sundays. Then you get into a little bit of the technology here, representation, some Boy Scout memorabilia and Girl Scout memorabilia, old hand tools. There's a cream separator there, very common farm implement. Look at the old padlocks and keys. What a collection. And of course a mastodon rib bone. Mastodons were in Iowa. Now the ostrich egg, he had to admit, did not come from Boxholm.
This is my archive room, and here are over 600 bound volumes of Boone County newspapers going back to the year 1857. And they've all been microfilmed, and no one wanted them, and they were going to the landfill, so I raised my hand once again. I had the space for it. I got the area to put them in. And all these books in here are Iowa history books.
That's quite an extensive collection. You've got newspaper, like the front pages of significant events. That is very interesting.
A complete set of like Annals of Iowa, a complete set of the Palimpsest magazine, all Iowa history stuff.
Right.
I got a lot of Iowa State University yearbooks called The Bomb up here back to 1905.
Right. Right.
Railroad history, railroad commissioners' reports back to 1870 something, and complete set of Iowa Journal of History and Politics, every issue.
Yep. That's very important research material you have saved. Very nice.
And I put a few more important headlines in this too.
Right.
Here's one they did on me when I wrote that first history book. Just odds and ends.
Very interesting.
I built this whole rack too, just to display these. It was a carpet sample rack out in a store once at one time. So.
I hope you've enjoyed this tour of the Boxholm Museum. If you ever find yourself in central Iowa and on Highway 169, why, you owe it to yourselves to give David a call. He was a very gracious host, very welcoming, and is just eager to talk about Boxholm history. I will leave some information here, and you can hit the pause button to get it on how to contact Dave. Just remember, he does not do technology. He has no answering machine. He's not on the internet. You just have to call and make arrangements with him. Give him plenty of time if you think you're heading through that area. Don't be like Kevin and I and just kind of drop in unannounced. But David was very, very accommodating, and we appreciate it so much. And here after the contact information, why, we just have a closing little chat with David. So until next time, everyone have a very delightful day, and I appreciate you watching this video here on History Delights. Well, David, Kevin and I, we really enjoyed the tour of this wonderful museum that you've put together. I can see it was your life's work, your life's mission, and I just want to say mission well done. You've done a great job here, David. Is there anything you'd like to say to our viewers that watch this video? Anything about preserving history? It's a good thing to do, isn't it?
Stop by if you have time.
And stop by if you have time. Give him a call. Well, once again, David, thank you so much.